And welcome to Blast IU 17's Online Learning Hub series. Today we are featuring Common Sense Media. Has anyone ever heard of Common Sense Media? Good. I'm not good, but I'm excited because I think it's a really cool tool that we don't really talk about much, but I think it's something that goes unnoticed. I don't know, Scott, you can agree or disagree there, but we are having our session this morning at 11 with Scott Ringkamp, our online learning coordinator, and he's going to go through the session today. Before we get started, we have a few reminders just to avoid kickback. What I'm going to do, I'm going to mute you all right now. We're just going to mute you, and then during the question and answer session, we will unmute you so you can ask questions. However, you can still ask questions in the chat throughout the presentation so you don't forget them if you have them while he's going through that. Also, this session will be recorded for future use. If you do not feel comfortable with your face on the recording, you may turn your camera off. However, we are trying to build community throughout this series, so sometimes being able to see everyone's faces is a lot more exciting when you're presenting and not talking to a black screen, right, Scott? Yes. Today's session will be in the format of a presentation and then a question and answer session. The presentation is, well, we're going to link it in the chat. I think, Scott, do you have it, or is it in the drive, the folder? Or he'll link it in.
It's in the folder.
Okay, I'll link it in there in a second. So you can follow along. At the conclusion of the webinar, we will send a feedback form link for you to complete. The form is going to help us understand your needs and also account for your attendance in today's session if we would need it in the future. Well, I'll share this stuff at the end, but Scott, you all ready?
Yep.
All right, Scott, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, here we go. I feel like I'm at the beginning of a Macbeth play here because of the title, to use or not to use. That is the question for today. And this is a subject that I teach to my Penn College students who take my educational technology class. And the thought is really, how do you go about figuring out what tools are good to use in your classroom? And it's really a three-step process. Wanted to share the process with you. First step is to identify the tool that you're interested in, and the second is to evaluate the tool for your specific classroom purpose. Maybe it's a good tool overall, but maybe it's not a good tool for your specific situation, and you want to check into that and make sure before you try to use it. And then step three is, how do you go about implementing it into your classroom? And if you follow this kind of process for every tool that you take a look at, it is a good way to make sure you don't end up with some duds, or you get in there and you don't know what you're doing with a specific tool. Today's really going to be focused on that first step of identifying, and a little bit of evaluating. But we really want to talk about, let's say you've been bombarded with all kinds of tools throughout the last few weeks here, and you're like, which ones are good, which ones are bad, what should I use, what shouldn't I use? You have two tools that do the exact same thing, and you don't have the time to go through and play with every single one of them. So when we're talking about identifying, we want to look at the tools, and the first thing is, where is it coming from? Where are you getting it? Is the source of the tool a valid source? And a lot of things we've gotten recently have come from PDE, which you would think would make them very valid, but there's been a lot of spewing forth of resources over the last few weeks, and everybody, people have been making spreadsheets of all these free things and these things, and I can guarantee you, not all the tools in those spreadsheets are things you actually ever want to use in your classroom, even though they're free or something like that. When I teach this, I talk about what was your source for that tool. Wikipedia and NPR are great sources. If you're thinking educational technology, I wouldn't take a tool from the Hollywood Reporter as like gospel truth. Like, this is a great tool to use. So you kind of want to be careful of that. You want to take a look at online reviews for a tool when you're trying to identify if it's good or bad. And um, some great places to do that: Common Sense Media, which we're going to spend the majority of today talking about and looking at. And then also, one of my favorite places to go to check out tools is Amazon. um, and to scroll through the reviews, and if it was a physical hardware type piece or something like that that you could purchase on Amazon, it's a fantastic place to kind of vet the stuff you're using in your classroom. And then who else is using the tool? um, and so are there other organizations using it already? Established organizations like Zoom is a pretty established web conferencing tool. It's used by a lot of people, so we know it's basically good at what it does. If you're trying to use like a web conferencing tool and you couldn't find any information about anybody else using it online, it might be a little sketchy, uh, and and so when we talk about that, we really talk about Google, and doing just a broad Google search for the tool to see if it pops up in any unique situations. Um, and the last thing you do when you are identifying a tool that for your classroom is, does it do what it says it does? And that's more of a hands-on piece. So once you go through all the rest and you read reviews and look at it online, you install it on your computer and you play with it and you check out and see, is it actually doing what they advertise it to do, or what you need it to do for your classroom experience. One way to get that as well is to go on YouTube and watch people. There's YouTube videos about everything. So if you are going to use a tool like Kahoot or um, Zoom or Microsoft Teams or anything like that, just go on YouTube, type it into the search box, and you'll find somebody reviewing it and doing a walkthrough of it. I have never found a software tool or an app or a hardware tool that does not have YouTube videos already on YouTube that you can watch about it. Um, so, kind of the purpose of today is to introduce you, or to kind of go, if you've some of you already introduced, but to look at a tool to check tools called Common Sense Media. And I'm gonna hop out of here and just go right to the site. Um, it is, where did I put it? Right here. So just at commonsense.org is the website, and we'll go back there, and right on the right in the top in that little video there, it says, we rate, educate, and advocate for kids, families, and schools. And Common Sense does kind of three things. Um, three things. So the first thing is that they look at tools and or entertainment options, and they rate them for for you to come on and read, and it's from a family perspective or a kid perspective. So they do, and if I um, here, okay. So Common Sense Media is the rating arm of the Common Sense, and you can see here some of the most recent movies that have been coming out. They're rating here. They have editor picks of all kinds of things that you should rate, and you can get information on them. I'm going to flip back over here to their other few pieces that they do. So Common Sense as a whole, they also do education. And they have certification programs. They have some digital citizenship programs that you can use with your kids or with you as educators. And the last thing they do then is advocacy for families in Washington D.C. and with legislation and stuff like that. So the arm that we are looking at today is Common Sense Media, and that is their rating tool for things you can find and you might be interested in using. So uh, kind of very easy to navigate. You can go by subjects across the top, or you can search here in the search box for a tool, and we're going to do that in a second. Also, on the top up here, you'll see they have some tabs. And if you click over to for educators, because we're talking about school, it'll give you some very specific categories that are related just to what you might be using in the classroom. Here's your digital citizenship resources, including stuff you can download and use with your kids. Um, Here's your ed tech reviews about technology for in the classroom. And then there's some other the webinars like monthly and stuff like that. So, so let's say we're interested in using Kahoot as a tool, and we'll just search for it here. Assuming my internet can handle it. Oh no, I'm loading. Oh, there it goes. There we go. So, uh, just searching for Kahoot, you'll see that it fills in anything related or that keyword is part of. Things that it can be integrated with a lot of times pop up as well. And if we go up to Kahoot itself here it is, the top one on this basic screen. You get a review from Common Sense. It's like your expert critic review, and then you get your teacher reviews from people who come on and leave reviews of the site. And then there's a privacy rating piece over here about the privacy of the tool itself. And there's a warning here about Kahoot, and we can kind of look at what that is. If you click on the tool itself, it kind of pops in. Um, gives you good information. One of the more important pieces is it tells you if there's a cost associated with it and allows you to see that cost. And then it also, you'll notice here, it pops up some videos and so you can kind of get a real life look at it before you were to dive into it. You can read reviews on it here to see what teachers are saying. You can read an overall review by Common Sense, and they give you a pretty comprehensive review of that. And then our privacy rating is over here, and it kind of tells you how they came about it and what things might pop up. And this isn't to say that you shouldn't use a tool if it has a warning or a privacy thing here, but it's good pieces to review before you dive into it for the first time, so you know what might happen while you're in the app. Um, so if we scroll back up a little bit, right here in the middle, this is the main section here. It gives you well, 3 breakdowns. How can I teach with this tool? What can I use it for in the classroom? And then some ways to put it into practice. Below it, what is what is the tool overview? Is it good for learning? And kind of some of the details about that there as well. Um, and so almost any product like app that you find, you can use to check here on this site. It also does media in itself. And this is very helpful, maybe not even now as we're online, but maybe so if you're embedding videos or something like that. But let's say even in the classroom, you want to use maybe a video or something like that, or another piece of media. And they, as I said earlier, they look at all that. So if you're like, let's say you want to use something around the Chronicles of Narnia or something, and it'll pull up the resource. It'll then give you kind of an age breakdown, like what ages is this good for? Is this a good, like if you're thinking of using something with your kids who are 6-year-olds, and you check here and it says age 10 plus. Why is that? And it'll give you kind of some of the information on that. For a lot of the more popular movies, there's a video review available of it too. You can go on and check it out. And then you'll notice on the left over here, you can do not just movies, but you can do books, you can do games, apps, websites, TV shows, music, um, and really then you can also drill down on these things, the very specific specifics. If you're interested in like parent concerns for things, you could type in like graphic violence and stuff like that, and it'll tell you what books have that in it, what movies have that in it, um, and uh, really help you vet the content that you're using in um, your classroom. So this is common sense media, and um, yeah, that's a lot of just kind of a quick overview of what it is, what it offers, and what we can use it for to look at your content. I guess that's kind of all I have right now. Becky, do you have anything you want to add about it?
No, that's a great, I think, introduction. Again, it's nothing tricky, but I think it's an amazing tool that educators just aren't necessarily aware of. And I wish, like, when I was in the classroom last year, I knew about this tool, because it's so much easier to, like, vet. I was always looking at reviews on Google and whatnot, but it's all right here. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing I would add too is that, like Scott said, it's great for parents as well. So when I know I have a bunch of questions as far as privacy and things for like Flipgrid, and that's a great thing to just show parents, like, hey, this is the privacy rating, this is what it collects, but or whatnot. So I think that's really important, especially like you said, in the times where we're getting lists of resources. You want to make sure it's the best resources to fit what you're teaching. Again, you don't want to give them 20 different resources, because to keep them busy, I guess you want to say, you want to pick something that is really beneficial for them. Again, quantity versus quality. So I learned about this website actually only a couple of months ago, and I love it now. So and I think you also, as an educator now in this digital world, you I don't want to say it's your duty, but it sort of is your duty to teach them digital citizenship. And I think this is a great way to show them how to use apps appropriately, and what people are saying. So I am going to unmute you, or I'll give you the permission to unmute yourself. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. You can play around too with it as well if you're trying to look at a site that you're getting into. So, does anyone have any questions?
Rebecca,
Yeah.
I don't have a specific question about that site. However, in another hub, you guys had shared another online learning, like a collaboration.
Mhm.
It was on our IU site, and it had like a bunch of different resources. And if nobody else has any questions about what you guys just went over, I was wondering if you could just show us that again.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone have any other questions for Common Sense Media? I hate when I just say about common sense, it makes me sound like anybody else have any questions regarding this website? Pretty easy to use, right? Share with your coworkers, your colleagues, show your administrators, because I think this is the time now where people really need to look at some of those things. Awesome. So
Okay.
why don't we,